June 4, 1942. The Pacific Ocean, 225 miles northwest of Midway Atoll. The sun has barely broken over the horizon when all hell breaks loose. At 7:10 a.m., the world erupts in flame and fury as dive bombers from the USS Enterprise, CV-6, and USS Yorktown, CV-5, dive through the thick, swirling clouds of war, their bombs ripping into Japanese carriers. Over the next few minutes, the Japanese fleet will suffer devastating blows, but for the USS Yorktown, the battle is only just beginning. Inside the hangar bay, Chief Petty Officer James "Jimmy" Donnelly crouches low behind a stack of crates. The air is thick with the acrid stench of burning fuel and the high-pitched wail of an alarm blaring through the ship. He can hear the telltale rumble of a bomb explosion, followed by the thudding, metallic sound of wreckage slamming into the steel hull. It's an all-too-familiar symphony of destruction for anyone who's been aboard a carrier in battle. "Watch out! Get clear!" he shouts to a group of men still trying to salvage aircraft on the flight deck. An explosion rocks the ship, and a wave of heat slaps them all as flames leap from below. For Donnelly and his men, it's clear. This is no ordinary damage. The Yorktown has been struck hard, strikes that could leave it sinking or incapacitated for good. But as the dust settles, Donnelly's mind snaps into focus. He knows the ship's survival will depend on two things: speed and ingenuity. And in the depths of the ship's inner workings, hidden from enemy eyes, there's a man whose very mind will make all the difference. Lieutenant Commander Ernest W. Ernie King isn't about to let the Yorktown go down without a fight. King, a naval officer with a background in engineering, has spent countless hours refining a damage control technique that could save ships like this one. Perhaps even this very ship. His innovation is simple, yet revolutionary. A form of rapid welding that allows damaged ships to be patched up while still at sea, far from dry docks or repair yards. It's not just theory, either. This technology has been tested under controlled conditions. Now, it's time to put it into practice, at the height of a battle. It's not just about fighting the enemy, it's about fighting time. "Get those welders' kits ready," King orders, as the first waves of damage control teams scramble to assess the damage and get to work. On the flight deck, the injured are being evacuated, while the ship's hull, pocked with holes and scorched by enemy fire, is about to become the site of a different kind of war, one fought with sparks, steel, and speed. By 7:30 a.m., the damage to the Yorktown is already apparent. The ship's port side is on fire, and several hangar deck bulkheads have buckled under the force of enemy bombs. But it's the lower deck, where the fuel lines and vital equipment run, that poses the greatest threat. A ruptured fuel tank could send the ship to the bottom within minutes, but the ship's engineers have no time to waste. "King, we need to stop the bleeding," says Commander Frank J. Jerry McMahon, Yorktown's chief engineer, as he assesses the situation. "We've got to stop the flooding, or we're done for." King stands over the plans for the ship's damage control procedures, outlining his strategy. "We'll use the repair patches. They're not just temporary. They'll hold, even under the pressure. But I need those welding kits ready to go. The faster we work, the better our chances of getting back into the fight. The strategy is simple. Patch the hull, weld the cracks shut, and use the materials available on board." The real challenge, however, is not just the rapid welding itself, it's the location and condition in which it has to be performed. The welders and repair teams must work in the ship's hull while the ship is under fire, while taking on water, and while the clock is ticking. Failure could mean the loss of one of the Navy's most vital carriers in the Pacific theater. The Yorktown's damage control teams are nothing if not resourceful. For most of the crew, this isn't their first battle. They've trained for this, but today's mission is different. This isn't just about plugging leaks, it's about taking an engine of war and bringing it back to life. "Lieutenant, what about the flooding below decks?" asks Donnelly, glancing nervously at the gauge indicating how fast the water is rising. "We'll have to drain it fast and get the hatches sealed," King replies, calm despite the chaos around him. "There's no room for hesitation now. It's either fix this ship, or we all go down with it." As the repair teams begin, the sound of welding torches fills the ship's bowels. Sparks fly into the air, creating a momentary flare of light amidst the constant darkness of the damaged sections. For some, the scene is pure madness, a firestorm of chaotic repair, sound, and pressure. But for Chief Donnelly, it's a rhythm he's known for years. "Focus on the job," Donnelly tells his men as they work, sweat and blood mingling as they bend to the grueling task. "One step at a time. We fix this ship, we get back in the fight." Despite the incessant rattling from above and the thumping sounds of distant explosions, there's a feeling of calm in the belly of the Yorktown, a kind of gritty determination that's palpable in the air. The repairs are painstaking, but after hours of continuous effort, the first sections of the Yorktown's hull are sealed with hastily but expertly placed patches. The welding team moves quickly, but the warship is still a long way from being fully battle-worthy. The crew has made an incredible start, but the true test will come in the next 24 hours. As dusk settles over the sea, the first signs of progress are evident. The flooding has slowed. The fire, though still burning in places, is under control. The USS Yorktown has not only survived the first wave of attacks, it is fighting to live. June 6, 1942. 24 hours after the initial attack. The USS Yorktown sits at the edge of the Pacific, listing slightly to port but still afloat. It's a miracle. To the men below deck, the sound of the welding torches is like music, a steady reminder that they're doing the impossible. The ship's systems are slowly being brought back online, but there's no time to waste. The battle at Midway has already shifted in favor of the Americans, but the Yorktown's survival is still uncertain. On the hangar deck, Chief Petty Officer Donnelly supervises the repair of critical aircraft systems. The smoke and stench of the earlier fire still linger in the air, but it's the noise of the welders that dominates. Each spark from the torch seems to punctuate the desperation of the mission, each burst of heat a sign of the crew's resilience. "Let's move it! We're on a timer!" Donnelly shouts as a group of sailors rush past, carrying parts for the damaged catapults. Nearby, Lieutenant Commander King inspects the work, his eyes flicking over the steel plates that have been hastily welded into place. His mind races through the blueprints for the ship, calculating where the weakest points are and mentally marking the next critical steps. The welding is making a difference, but it's only part of the equation. The Yorktown needs to be in fighting shape, and fast. "We've got about 30 minutes before the next scheduled air raid," King says to McMahon, who's been coordinating the damage control from the engine room. "We need to get the power restored by then, or we're going to lose what we've worked for." The pressure is mounting, but McMahon nods grimly. "I've got my men working on it. We'll have enough juice to get the deck operations up, but it's not going to be pretty." To the untrained eye, it would seem impossible. A carrier, heavily damaged, with fires still raging on certain decks, could never go back to combat in this condition. Yet the men of the Yorktown aren't concerned with the impossible. They are concerned only with what can be done now and what must be done next. King looks out over the ship's massive hull, his jaw set. He knows the importance of getting the ship back into the fight. Not only does the United States need every ship in the Pacific, but the Yorktown has become a symbol, an embodiment of American ingenuity and resolve. If it can recover, so can the country. June 7, 1942. The morning light casts a pale glow over the smoke and haze of the battle-scarred ocean. The sounds of welding have faded, but the hum of the ship's power systems begins to rise, faint at first, then louder, until the Yorktown's engines sputter to life. By the early morning, the impossible happens. The Yorktown is operational, almost fully repaired, and ready to go back into combat. It is a feat that defies belief, considering the extent of the damage the carrier suffered just 2 days ago. The repairs have held, and the ship has returned to life. The men of the damage control teams, most of whom have been working non-stop since the attack, can barely believe it. "I thought we were done for," says machinist's mate First Class Alan Rodriguez, looking over the newly repaired areas of the hangar deck. "But they said we'd get it done. They said the welding would hold, and here we are, ready to fly." Lieutenant Commander King walks through the deck, wiping his brow with the back of his hand. There's a slight tremor in his fingers, part exhaustion, part disbelief. The welding, The quick improvisations and the sheer determination of the crew have brought the Yorktown back from the brink. "Looks like she's good to go," King remarks, inspecting the newly reinforced bulkheads that once threatened to buckle under the weight of the attack. But it's not over yet. The ship's ability to move and fight remains uncertain. But one thing is clear: the Yorktown is still a force to be reckoned with. The Americans are not giving up, not on this ship and not on this fight. Just hours later, a fresh wave of Japanese bombers appears on the horizon. The crew's hearts pound. The repair teams have done their part, but the ultimate test is yet to come. Can the Yorktown launch planes and defend itself with its newly restored systems? "Air Wing, prepare to launch," McMahon orders from the flight deck, his voice sharp as he watches the bombers approach. He looks over to Donnelly, who is already motioning to the pilots. "Get those birds off the deck and keep them in the air. We're not giving up yet," Donnelly shouts, his eyes scanning the approaching planes. In the command center, the Yorktown's officers prepare for another round of battle. The crew knows they're facing a very real danger, but they also know that this carrier has just proven something profound. That with enough resourcefulness, determination, and perhaps a bit of luck, even the most dire circumstances can be turned around. As the first squadron of American fighters screeches down the flight deck and lifts off into the smoky sky, the Yorktown is back in action. The USS Yorktown may have been on the verge of sinking just days before, but now it is a symbol of American resilience. The Battle of Midway is now in its final stages. The damage to the Japanese fleet has been devastating. The American forces, buoyed by their carrier's ability to recover, press their advantage. The Yorktown, though scarred and battered, is once again fully functional, its aircraft in the sky, its guns defending its deck. But there is a heavy price to pay for this miraculous recovery. The Yorktown is not invincible. The toll on her crew has been immense. They've fought, welded, and patched her up under fire. But now, even as the last waves of battle subside, there is a sense of exhaustion and resignation in the air. On June 7th, later in the afternoon, a final wave of Japanese bombers, having regrouped and returned, finds the Yorktown once again. This time, there will be no miraculous welding, no patching in time. One bomb strikes her amidships, puncturing a vital area of the hull. The ship begins to tilt once more, slowly at first, and then rapidly. As water floods the lower decks, the crew scrambles to abandon ship. The Yorktown has held long enough to fight through the battle, but now it's sinking. By 7:12 p.m., the USS Yorktown is lost, sinking beneath the waves. But its legacy lives on. The rapid welding and modular repair techniques developed by King and the damage control teams have proven that even a ship on the verge of destruction can return to fight another day. The Yorktown's final hours would be tragic, but they were not in vain. Her recovery at sea, though short-lived, would change naval warfare forever.